This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is
the one that everybody wants, me.
Becky Lynch is going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my iron. You're going to acknowledge me.
All right, everybody, it's time for the mailbag here on the WWE Podcast. As you would imagine, there are a lot of emails to get through. In fact, I can almost guarantee we won't get through them all. We've got over 20. I will just say that. That doesn't sound like a lot, okay? We have thousands of listeners, 20 emails, but 20 emails is a lot, plus voicemails. So we are going to do our best to get through as many as we can on this show. If we don't get to your email on this show, we will get to it either in a part 2, or I will do my damnedest to make it attached to the week in review show that we do on Sunday. Okay, so keep that in mind. That I did get your email. It's just a matter of time, and I don't think you guys want to hear me read 20 emails in a row in a single setting. So there is that too. We don't have that many voicemails, but I wanted to give you the number right up front. It's a lot. Usually there's 10 or less, and we've doubled that with the Rumble season, and we've got a lot to get through. So before we get there, though, I want to give a shout out to a new patron who joined us on the SmackDown tier over at Patreon, and that is Star D Star. So Star D Star, thank you for joining us on the SmackDown tier, and I'm glad you listened to us on Spotify. I'm glad that you joined us on the SmackDown tier because you get a shout out as well as you get a exclusive show, which is the After Dark show, done every single week towards the end of the week, Friday, Saturday time frame. So, and enjoy. You're listening from Scotland, so very good. A lot of international listeners. And speaking of international, just kind of letting you guys know where we stand in the standings. And over the weekend, we hit actually over the last couple of days, we hit the almost top 10 in Canada with the wrestling podcast in Canada. Now, things fluctuate on a daily basis, but that is our highest ranking in Canada. And in the United States, we hit number 28, which doesn't sound like, oh, you're not even in the top 10. It's like, it's difficult. It's very difficult. But I wanted to let you guys know, thank you. Thank you for supporting the show. Thank you for downloading the show. That's how you help us. It's the best way to help us. But let's get to the emails. And if you want your emails read up front, guys, Patreon is the way to go because patrons get priority in the show. If you're not a patron of the show, your email is probably going to be towards the back of the show or in part 2. I just want to let you guys know that right up front. So another incentive to go on Patreon. And let's get to it as we have Scott McCabe. And Scott says, "Hey, Matt, one for the mailbag this week. Been a long time, but after watching the Rumble and listening to your review show, I have to agree that the Rumble lacked a wow factor. Jade Cargill's debut was good, but we really needed to rock up. We needed The Rock to show up and stare down the tribal chief. With Punk gone until SummerSlam, maybe this throws a big curveball into the plans for Mania. Maybe Triple H gets on the phone to Roman and he makes him go to Perth for the Elimination Chamber and then brings out The Rock. We go off from WrestleMania. As far as I know, Punk was scheduled to be the face of the Chamber. So WWE needs a star to show off. Thanks for all the great show. As usual, Scott from the UK. Well, thank you, Scott from the UK. So that's a good point. As Roman Reigns was not advertised and not supposed to be originally a part of the Elimination Chamber, WWE does more often than not make good on their promise to bring star power to the shows, especially in Perth, Australia. Okay. Now, Perth isn't exactly the birthplace of professional wrestling, but they have really promoted this event a lot. I mean, I know in Perth, I've spoken to people who live near Australia, and they are just, or not near, you can't really live near it, right? You either live in it or you don't. But I've spoken to people who live in Australia and who have emailed me and said that they are seeing this, advertisements all over the place for this event, and they are heavily promoting it. They can't, just because of an injury, let the fans down with star power, which means, like you said, they could call Roman Reigns and say, hey, let's add this date to your contract, get you paid, and bring you in. And same with The Rock. I don't need a match with The Rock. I just need to set up WrestleMania. And they can absolutely do that. that could kind of force their hand a little bit faster with the injury to bring in a bigger star to help fill that gap that Punk left. Now, Punk was the favorite to win the Elimination Chamber, no doubt about it. Absolute the favorite to win the show and win the event to face Seth Rollins, but now that's gone out the window. So good point, Scott. Thank you for emailing us. Let's get to another patron here, and let's talk to Freeman. And Freeman says, "Hi, Matt. It's been a great week of wrestling, with the Rumble being a solid 9 out of 10 for me, but the problem is that leaves a lot to talk about, which leads to long emails. So here's a bulleted point list of the top 5 moments of the week to keep it short." I appreciate that, Freeman. It's just that, by the way, if you're new to the mailbag, try to keep it as concise as possible. If you read your email out loud and it's more than 3 minutes, it's too long. But it's just a matter of trying to get through the emails, everyone getting a chance. Otherwise, I'm going to linger on an email for 20 minutes, and that's not good for anyone, right? So I appreciate that, Freeman. So, okay. Santos Escobar tearing the bandages off Carlito on SmackDown was amazing storytelling and great for his character. Shame this happened so close to the Rumble as is being overlooked. Yeah, no one's talking about that. And it's kind of a shame because Santos was on a roll, and then his storyline's still progressing, and that's a good thing. It feels like his story has taken not just a backseat, but I mean, he's on top of the roof. He's not even in the backseat of the car. He's on the roof. He's still on the car, but it's not exactly priority, right? So that's a good point. I think we should, as fans, appreciate what's going on with Santos and Carlito. Santos, who has been a breakout star over the last couple months. Piper Niven being paired with Chelsea Green seems to be moving from her angry warrior to the best friend we all want. Her catching and saving Chelsea was the best part of the Rumble. Yeah, even though it was a bit botched in terms of you could tell it was a staged move, a setup move. The timing was a little off. Not a complaint. The Rumble's an extremely difficult match to navigate from a creative standpoint, just developing all of the different eliminations and who comes in when and all that stuff. Not easy. And also execution. There's so many moving parts. So it's not a complaint, but it did seem a little staged. However, I agree. Piper Niven and Chelsea Green, they have chemistry. I love it. I am all about this team. Maybe, to me, the most enjoyable tag team that the women's division has ever produced. So, all right, Asuka doesn't seem right in the tag scene. She seems above it, and Carter and Chance need it more. Yeah, admittedly, there is something awkward and unnatural about Asuka in the tag team scene. It doesn't seem right, but I mean, when she's with when she's with her buddy, right, in the Kabuki Warriors, when she's with Kairi Sane, it at least softens it a little bit. But it also makes it double weird that she's in a group and she's not really the leader of the group, considering who Asuka is. So yeah, it is weird. But at the same time, I support it in the fact that the mission of keeping them together as a tag team and as a group is to pretend that there is, or actually establish, not even pretend anymore, that there's a women's tag team division. So Gunther can't win the Elimination Chamber as he isn't allowed to leave the USA on his current visa. Most likely we get Drew and Seth. So that I don't know. I didn't know. I will take you at face value that Gunther can't leave the US on his current visa. I will pretend that you're telling me the truth. I believe you are. I don't have I can't verify that. But if you get Drew and Seth, that's not the end of the world. I don't hate that. Drew has made a hell of a case for himself over the last few weeks and months of this heel turn that was kind of a heel turn, then maybe back, but he's still intriguing, and now he's gone full heel. And it's been brilliant. The best moment he's ever had in his career this past Monday with Punk, telling Punk that he prayed for this. I mean, awesome. Loved it. So I wouldn't hate Drew and Seth. I think that, the thing is, though, we've seen this fairly recently, though, right? Like Drew and Seth just happened a month and a half ago, and they had several matches together, so it wouldn't feel fresh, which is the only argument against it. All right, final point. I'm now all aboard the Cody train, not because I like him, but because we'll get the belt off of Roman Reigns. So I will board the Cody train with you. I will buy a ticket on the Cody train to win the belt, and then I'm immediately off. I will solely buy the ticket just to get the belt off of Roman, despite the fact that myself and others, although I'm in the minority, no question, despise his babyface character. But if it's for the greater good of getting the belt off of Roman, and he has a much better chance to beat Roman than really anyone on the roster, including The Rock, especially The Rock, he has almost no chance of beating Roman, then yes, sign me up for Cody winning. That's how badly we need to get the belt off of Roman. And I know what the WWE officials or management would say, oh, careful what you wish for. You're going to be wishing for these days of Roman Reigns as champion and remember them and how you lived through history. No, I'm not. No, I won't. No, I'm good. I know what a Roman Reigns multi-year run looks like and feels like. I'm good. I'm good forever. Okay. So, but that said, yeah, sign me up for the Cody train if the greater good is being served. So thanks, Freeman. All right, let's get to DJ Kuzmo. And he says he's back at it again. I just want to briefly say 3 things from the Rumble that I enjoyed the most. Number 1, the Women's Royal Rumble, in my opinion, was the best I've ever seen. One specific reason, WWE did not have any nostalgic diva appearances. We got the entire women's roster on display from Raw to SmackDown to NXT, and appearances from Jade Cargill, TNA's knockout champ Jordan Grace, and the returns of Naomi and Liv Morgan. Just a quick side note, if TNA Wrestling and WWE are going to do some sort of collab PLE in the near future, a few interesting women matchups I would love to see are Bianca versus Jordan or Bianca versus Jade, Cargill versus Jordan Grace. Even a WrestleMania match of Cargill versus Bianca would be cool. Shout out to Bayley for winning her first Rumble. I don't know, DJ, how deep this TNA relationship runs with WWE. They are certainly doing things out of the ordinary. Under the Vince McMahon regime, this would almost never happen, almost. So this is an interesting relationship that you do wonder, could they do some cross-promotion one-on-one matches outside of just the kind of one-off or cameo appearance? Do they dare do it? And interestingly, do they put WWE stars on TNA television? Probably not. WWE is the bigger dog in the fight. They're the ones with all the leverage. So I would imagine it's not WWE going to them. It's them coming to WWE. So yeah, I mean, all those different variations of matches you mentioned are just, yes, give it to me every day, twice on Sunday. Bianca, Jordan, Cargill, in any fashion that you want to give it to me. And that's what she said. Okay, number 2. Oh my goodness. How about Braun Breaker's breakout performance in the men's Rumble? Absolutely incredible. This guy is in his first Rumble eliminated 4 guys, Jimmy, Finn, Ivar, and Omos. He eliminated Omos? What? Who does that? With that being said, I don't know what WWE is waiting for. It's time to move Braun Breaker to the main roster. Well, yes, sure. Bring Braun Breaker, there's a tongue twister for you, to the main roster, the Triple Bs. But don't forget, that spot was supposed to be for Brock Lesnar, reportedly, which it makes sense. Given he had eliminated 4 big guys from the Rumble, that spot was supposed to be for Brock. Braun wasn't supposed to be in the Rumble from what I understand at all. Braun was a fill-in for Brock, who's obviously in litigation hell right now with Vince. So would those eliminations have happened if Braun was in the Rumble without Brock being absent? Probably not. So I don't know if he's just the beneficiary of Brock not being there and then he's going to go back to NXT and live there for a while, or if they look at this and say, hey, you know what? I think it is time. Well, I think it is time. I mean, honestly, to answer the question, I do think it is time. But WWE is the ultimate say. We can only whine and complain that he should be there. But 3, last and certainly not least, R-Truth. What more can I say here? Just absolutely hilarious in both Rumbles. He's asking where the guy's at in the Women's Rumble. And in the Men's Rumble, eliminating JD in 3 seconds. That's got to be a new Rumble record. Anyway, this is DJ Kuzmo signing off. Have a great weekend. Peace. Well, I mean, R-Truth, not only that, but on Raw, with him telling what was it, JD, that he's like the weird uncle in the family, and that Priest is like his older brother, and Priest is like, you're older than me. That was hilarious. But now things have taken a turn on Raw. Judgment Day's firmly back in the heel position, no longer being infiltrated by R-Truth's brilliance. And I think, as I mentioned on my Raw review last night with Amanda, that it's going to be R-Truth and The Miz, Awesome Truth, versus Finn Balor and Damian Priest at WrestleMania for the tag titles. And I believe they're going to win the tag titles at WrestleMania. Kind of a mini program from last year that mimicked the Bloodline and KO and Sammy. So, all right, DJ. Thank you, my friend. We'll get to your Veer Mahan reports shortly. Let's, actually, I shouldn't say shortly. We've got a lot of emails. So I say shortly, but I kind of mean that in a relative sense. All right. Let's talk to another Patreon subscriber, Kareem, the Pebble. And Kareem says, hey, Matt, sorry it's been a while. Life's just been getting in the way, and I've been enjoying just listening into every show without contributing as much as I'd like. The likes of DJ, Kuzmo, and Alex, the French guy, provide awesome enough content on the mailbag anyway. Just wanted to throw a potential scenario your way, as it looks like we're likely going to get Cody versus Reigns Part 2 at WrestleMania, and it's almost a given that Cody will complete his story. How likely do you think it is that WWE will throw a curveball in the form of Senor Money in the Bank Damian Priest? Imagine this. Cody hits his extremely underwhelming finish. Yes, it is. I mean, there's just no way about it. The Crossroads is, outside of it being a twisty, turny move, is a horrible finish. Only because it's nearly impossible to execute it the way you want to, unless you have an extremely athletic, flexible guy, and usually smaller guy. Otherwise, even in real time, slowing down any move will make it kind of look crappy because it's professional wrestling. But even in real time, when it's done quickly, it looks horrible because it's very clear Cody's the one taking the bump. He's taking the back bump. Like it's a horrible finish. And I'm not saying that because I hate the babyface character. Just look at it. It's not as bad as the big ending from Big E, but it's pretty bad. And he always needs to hit it like 4 times in order for him to finish a match. Almost always. But anyway, let's continue out with your scenario before I go on a Cody rant. Hey, we almost got, like 20 minutes into the show without me going on a Cody rant. It's a new record. So, okay, he hits his finish. Cody hits his finish and goes for the pin. 1, 2, and out of nowhere, Priest comes in to cash in. Instead of Cody finishing the story, we get Priest taking the title via the cash-in. I know this is very similar to how Seth cashed in at Mania against Brock and Reigns, so I'm wondering whether you think they'll do this again. Priest only ever alluded to cashing in on Seth, so it would be an awesome twist in my opinion if he suddenly decided to change track and take the WWE title instead. I can't imagine that many would see this coming. It would be a smart move on WWE's part to provide another shocking WrestleMania moment, especially as I can't really stand Cody as a babyface either, and I think he'd be unbearable as a champ. Curious to hear your thoughts. Keep up the amazing work. Kareem from Gibraltar, a.k.a. The Pebble. Well, Kareem from Gibraltar, good scenario. I think it's a very possible scenario that we get the cash in. Everyone thinks it's going to be for the world title, but it's really Roman's title. The reason I don't think they'll do that, it messes with a lot of storylines, and it also messes with the brand split rules, however much they pretend that those exist still. Because if Damian Priest wins it, where does he go? You can't bring him back to Raw. SmackDown doesn't have a champion now. And then if he comes to SmackDown, does that mean the whole Judgment Day comes to SmackDown? Can they just float? It gets weird. Also, you're going to go from a heel champion to a heel champion. Not the best strategy usually. I mean, I'm trying to even think the last time that was done. I don't know. I'm sure it's been done. But heel champion, especially a long reigning heel champion, then drops it to another heel. It doesn't exactly lend itself to be the most interesting from the perspective of heel to heel. But sure, from a shock perspective, people are like, oh my God, wait, I thought he was going for Seth's. Yes, that's the big benefactor. But logically, it's like, okay, you've done it. Now what? It's the now what part that I think you're going to have trouble when you're doing the follow-up to it. The shock will certainly set the internet on fire. Lots of conflicting opinions, polarizing opinions. But after that wears off and you have to actually deal with the consequences of that decision and what that means, you may run into some trouble from a creative standpoint. So I don't think it's impossible, but I don't think that we're also going to get Cody and Reigns. I think it's going to be Cody Seth. Based on Punk's injury, I think Cody Seth is a very solid second choice, and you could still have Cody win and finish his story. But I know everyone's looking at Roman Reigns as the end boss, getting revenge on Roman. So it's still possible he goes after Roman. We're going to learn a lot over the next week when he comes face to face with Roman this week on SmackDown. What happens on next week's Raw? Does he make a decision? Like, how long are we going to string this out? Then where does The Rock come up and all this? Like, I'm tired of actually, and I don't mean this is your problem, Kareem. I remember saying this last night in my Raw review. Like, I'm sick and tired of actually like trying to figure it out in my head. It's giving me, an aneurysm. Knock on wood. I shouldn't say that, right? The famous last words, but it is. I feel like I'm having early onset, heart palpitations. I don't know, something, because every time I think about it, there's 40 different spiderweb, different scenarios you could do that are a lot of them are good. Some are not great, but I just want to know the solution so we can move the hell on and actually talk about the match that exists instead of matches that don't exist yet. We've been speculating about this for months and months and months and months. And I just want to have a decision from Cody. Is The Rock here or is he not? Crap or get off the pot. I'm not yelling at you, Kareem, obviously. I'm just frustrated with I want to know the card so we can talk about it for real, All right. Well, thanks, Kareem. Let's go to another patron. This is Efren, Noah, and Marshall. And they say, hello again. So with the two big injuries going on with Seth and Punk, Brock probably not competing anytime soon, or maybe not again in the WWE. Who do you think will win the Chamber and challenge Seth? I was leaning towards Gunther, but I thought that Gunther had a visa issue and was not allowed to leave the U.S. for 6 months, and it would be cleared shortly before the Bash in Berlin PLE. Maybe it was resolved, but if not, then he cannot compete at Chamber in Perth. I wouldn't want to see Drew win the Chamber and challenge Seth again because it feels so redundant and forced. Finally, with the big injuries, do you think that Triple H will try to sign another big name like Okada, or will he rely on more NXT stars for the main roster? Let me know what you think, and we'll talk again soon. The three horse guys, Noah, Efren, and Marshall. Well, guys, good questions. First, answering this backwards, I think WWE enjoys their homegrown talent. I mean, any sports organization, it's a better story, and I guess there's more support usually for homegrown talent from, kind of a fan love perspective, because especially those that watch NXT and can watch the progression of the stars from essentially being nobodies in NXT and eventually making it to the main roster and then following their career. There's a certain love and kind of sense of satisfaction that comes with that. And I think every sports organization, whether it's WWE or really any sports organization, baseball especially with their minor league system, there's something special about having homegrown talent. The fans seem to have a stronger connection with that particular talent. But Okada's a big name. And in those of you who haven't seen Okada's work, I'd highly recommend that you do. He's a big name, but I don't think that, honestly, the majority of WWE fans are going to have, say he debuted next week. I think there's a good chunk of those fans that would sit there and go, who? Who's this? Right? That would happen. Because WWE fans are often in their bubble. They don't look at anything with New Japan. They don't look at TNA. They don't look at, some of them don't even watch AEW for one reason or another, not for better or for worse. It's just the way a lot of WWE fans are, and there's nothing wrong with that. But again, I don't know if the Okada factor would be a massive splash or a massive dud, depending on how he's presented. But moving on to your second question, Yeah, so you're the second person to bring up the visa issue with Gunther. So there's a pattern, and I'm taking everyone at face value. So yeah, that means he won't be in Perth, which means he can't be in the chamber, which means he's not going to be competing for the world title with Seth in the chamber. If the chamber is meant for the world title. See, here's the thing. If Cody chooses Seth, that means that they're not going to have the chamber be for Seth's number one contendership for the world title. I mean, you still could, because you could have Cody saying, well, no, they couldn't do it, because if the title's not on the line, that means that Seth doesn't compete at chamber. He kind of gets a bye to WrestleMania. So yeah, if Cody chooses Seth, that means they're not going to have the chamber decide who's facing Seth, because we've already determined it, because the Rumble winner did it, which means the chamber would be for Roman Reigns' championship, at least the number one contendership for his championship. So I think in that scenario, you could have, you won't have Gunther, but does The Rock dare show up? Does The Rock actually participate in the Elimination Chamber? Probably not. So there's a lot of weird stuff going on, is there not? That's why, as I just got a little bit frustrated with the whole scenario, and it's not you guys, it's just this whole scenario of possibilities that's just frustrating me because there's so many. I just want a solution so we can get to the actual potential outcomes instead of thinking about potential outcome or potential matches that could lead to potential outcomes. It's like 4 levels deep, right? So, but that does mean ultimately, to your question, that Gunther is not going to compete in the actual Perth, Australia chamber event, which stinks, right? Because Gunther is a massive star right now and arguably WWE's MVP. So, yeah, and Brock's probably not coming back, at least in the foreseeable future, unless he somehow clears his name, which, you know what? I hope he does. I hope he's able to clear his name, because I think Brock back in WWE would be, it's an objective positive. How can anyone say Brock back in WWE if he's cleared? If he's cleared. Okay, let me just be clear. I don't want him back competing if he's found guilty of something. I mean, it'd be a really bad look, and it wouldn't be right. But if he's able to clear his name, yeah, absolutely bring back Brock, but I don't think that's going to happen quickly. There's nothing with litigation that's quick. When it comes to lawyers and courts and litigations and lawsuits, all of those terms are antonyms of quick, right? So this is probably going to drag out for months, which means past Mania, which means Brock's not going to be at Mania, which is kind of a bummer, is it not? So thank you so much, guys. Hope you're doing well. Okay, let's continue here. And okay, let's go to another patron. And guys, if you are patrons of the show, please put in the subject you're a patron of the show. You can just put in parentheses, Patreon member, or I'm a patron, whatever, so I know you are. Because if you don't do that, I don't cross-check all the emails I get with all the emails I have that are subscribers on Patreon, because I'm just too lazy to do that, to be honest. So please just put in the subject you're a Patreon member. That way I know, and I prioritize you, okay? Now it's the honor system. If somebody who's not a patron does that, you may have snuck yourself in, but it's the honor system. So please don't do that. Okay. It's not fair to the ones who are actually patrons. Or if you want to ensure yourself getting a priority email read, put yourself into the actual internal Patreon messaging system and message me directly. So, but anyway, let's get to Joe. This is, I believe, your first time writing in, but let's find out. All right, so this is Joe. He says, "Hey, everyone. I'm just sharing my thoughts on the new accusations of Vince McMahon. Because I've heard a lot of chatter through friends, family, and on social media, I felt it was unfair for WWE as a whole. Though innocent until proven guilty, the evidence is damning. I just want to say he is not part of what WWE is for me. The childhood memories of Hogan versus Warrior, the body slam heard round the world, Austin 316, Lita's moonsault, The Undertaker, who's your personal favorite. No WWE I know is from the work, passion, creativity, and athleticism of the wrestlers. Vince will be right there with Benoit, in my opinion, if he's truly guilty. I hope justice is served upon him if he is. I deeply feel for the wrestlers and staff, both past and present, that their work is forever tainted by some fans by this man's actions, if proven to be true and he's guilty. But as a longtime fan of the wrestlers and WWE, I still tip my hat to them. Thank you for taking the time to read this. Just wanted to put it out there. All right, well, thank you, Joe. Yeah, you know, it is an innocent until proven guilty. You know, that's the way our law system works. But sometimes you just need to use common sense. I'm not saying you, Joe. I'm saying generally that we don't always have to apply that logic no matter what, right? I mean, there's a lot of people that plead not guilty to crimes that they're clearly guilty of. There's video evidence, right? And we don't have to sit there and go, well, I can't say he's guilty because the law says I have to say he's innocent until proven guilty. That's just the court of law. That's due process, right? But in reality, using common sense, sometimes you look at the evidence and you go, just no, like this dude, this woman, whoever is guilty. Now, admittedly, I have not looked at all the evidence for Vince. And if these accusations are true, which seems to be what a lot of people are leaning towards, then yeah, he deserves to be shamed. He deserves to be ousted. He deserves all the punishment that is coming his way. But here's the one thing, the hot take that I will say. Is awful if all of those things and accusations are true and he's found guilty and it's, you know, all of those things and he's sued into oblivion, then, you know, sure, it's awful. Those things that he's done are truly terrible. But I don't think we can put him on the same level as murdering your entire family and committing suicide. You know, like, it's awful, no doubt about it, if what Vince has done is true, right? Using a girl to, have an affair and then using her to pass around to Brock or whoever and saying, I own you. All horrible stuff. No doubt. It's horrific. But is it really as bad as killing your kids and your wife and then hanging yourself? I mean, I don't talk about Benoit on the show a lot. Most people have kind of moved on and pretend he doesn't exist, which is a shame in a lot of respects because he was one of the best professional wrestlers I've ever seen. From a professional wrestler standpoint, obviously not a human being standpoint. But I've seen a lot of comparisons of Benoit and how he'll be in hell with Vince and all that, you know. But if I was to put Vince McMahon with what he's accused of and Benoit next to him side by side, I mean, I would choose Vince McMahon over Benoit. I mean, again, think about what Benoit did. I know it's been a long time, so sometimes time softens the blow of what actually happened back in 2007. But what Benoit did is, I mean, it's incomprehensible. So, you know, a bit different there for me. Degrees of terribleness exist. Not all crimes, not all litigation, not all actions are equal. Even if they're both bad, there's degrees of bad, you know? But I hear what you're saying. I mean, I understand the premise. I totally get it. But I've seen a lot of the equating Vince's actions to what Benoit did, and it's like, yeah, both are horrific, but one is a bit more horrific to me than obviously what Vince has done, even though what Vince has done, if it's true, is still awful. So, all right. I'm sure I'll get some feedback on that comment, but it's, you know, that's how I feel. But thank you. Thank you, Joe. All right. Let's talk to another patron, Anthony. He says, good evening. Short and sweet. Cody isn't going after Seth. Roman ain't dropping the belt before Mania. Rock versus Roman at Mania is dead. Book it. But can't wait to hear the scenarios you're going to come up with where it's still possible, Anthony. P.S. Here for you on April 8th, buddy. Okay, well, so here's what I'll say. Yes, I totally agree. Roman's not dropping the belt before WrestleMania. And there's a better chance of Vince McMahon being reinstated as CEO. Okay? I understand that. It ain't happening. 100% agree. Cody versus Seth? Can you be really that sure? I mean, I don't know. WWE put a hell of a case out there on Monday. I'm not saying it's for sure, but does it not make some sense to put Cody and Seth together? I understand the history with Cody and Roman, but it's a great way to get to Rock Roman. And how do you say Rock Roman at Mania is dead? How do you know that? Who did you talk to? Did you just see people talking online? Is it Rock himself? I mean, Rock just a month ago came out and said he's going to sit at the head of the table. I mean, that's on WWE television. You're telling me he just said that on a whim? No. Right? But we'll see. I think there's going to be a lot of questions answered over the next week. All right. Thanks, Anthony. Where are we going? This is, see, I feel like I'm missing some patrons here because I don't see it in the subject. Let's go to King Scully in the house, and let's get to it. He says he's representing the UK all day. Well, what about all night? I mean, do you forget about the UK at night? I mean, that's not fair. That's like only half the battle. So if you don't represent the UK at night, I mean, there's got to be somebody who does. All right. So I hope you're good. Matt, WWE Podcast World, of course. Well, thank you. The Rumble, my favorite pay-per-view of the year, and what a disappointment. It didn't just get me off the edge of my seat at all. I debated with myself whether to stay up all night and watch it live. Your start time was 1 a.m. Good God. Yeah, I don't know how do you guys overseas deal with that? Do some of you actually stay up? How do you manage it? And also, if you just sleep, how do you avoid social media? You must shut off your phones, because when I try to avoid something, it's almost impossible. I nearly get everything ruined. Every single time, I'm just too tired to watch this. And then I'll wake up and there's a YouTube notification, so-and-so versus so-and-so or so-and-so returns. And it's damn it, son of a, right? So a lot of times things are ruined inadvertently, but I don't know how you guys over there do it. I mean, you've been dealing with this forever, but okay. I'm sure that when WrestleMania comes to the UK, though, when that happens, when it does, because it's going to be a when, you guys will be telling the rest of the world, deal with it, right? We've been dealing with the wonky start times for decades. All right. But being a dad, I decided not to, and I'm glad I didn't. I set my alarm so I could get up and watch it without spoilers. I put it on about 6:30, and I have to say there was no goosebump moment. I have to agree. The Women's Rumble. The match was full of botches, and as much as it was great to see the return of Naomi, let's be honest, she stayed on the ground, in the corner for most of the match. I would say Jordan Grace stood out for me. I never really saw her before, but she impressed me with the TNA Knockout champ. R-Truth running down was hilarious. Props to Chelsea Green. I was happy that Bayley won it. I mean, yeah, R-Truth absolutely was. I mean, I don't know what more to say about him. There were a lot of botches. The Women's Rumble didn't really pick up for me until Becky came out, and obviously Jade Cargill, and we're really at the beginning of Naomi, but there was a good chunk of the women's match that was, clunky at best. But the Fatal 4-Way, just another Roman Reigns match with interference and shenanigans. Yawn. Totally agree. And that's awful to say, think about the talent that was in that match, and we're saying yawn. That's the damage that WWE continues to not care to inflict on the interest levels and talent of every Roman Reigns championship match. Is, you're going to get a good quality match, but the formula remains the same. Now, that formula will eventually change, and he will drop the belt at some point, and we'll all go, oh my God, finally. But until that happens, Roman Reigns' matches are boring from the perspective of the finish. And that sucks. I don't want to be sold a bill of goods where WWE says, well, yeah, you may, we'll probably keep the belt on Roman, but look at the match. Look at who's in it. No. The finish is what you're building to the whole match. If I know what the finish is, it takes away the interest level immediately. So yeah, I agree. The U.S. Championship match. Logan Paul versus KO was a decent match, and they told a great story throughout. I think Paul needs work on his selling, though. I mean, he seems to get up far too quick sometimes. Take the Owens frog splash, for example. He was straight up after the kick out. Normally a fan of a DQ finish, but at the pay-per-view it worked. Yeah, that's the one thing. I remember saying that about Logan Paul too, where he needs to sell, not just register moves. I would agree. If there's one criticism about Paul, that would be it. The men's rumble, Cody won. Surprise, not really. Andrade returns. R-Truth was great again, and the hot tag to Dom was brilliant. Yes, that was hilarious. On that note, hats off to Dom. Who stood out for me, though, and impressed me the most? Braun Breaker. I really enjoyed his time in the Rumble. He's so quick and powerful. I give the whole thing 4 out of 10. Yikes. Anyways, just to let you know, I'm a Brummie. A Brummie is someone from Birmingham. Okay. Well, yeah, because I asked that last time. Here in the U.S., I mean, that's like a foreign word to me. To us, I would imagine most of us like, huh? A Brummie. Sounds like a dessert or something, right? But yeah, okay, so it's someone from Birmingham. But here's the question. Does it mean you're just from Birmingham, or is it some kind of endearing term, or is it some kind of derogatory term, or like, I don't know if there's a feeling with it, or if it's just, hey, it just means you're from Birmingham with no kind of derogatory attachment to it. Because it sounds like it would be a bit derogatory, but perhaps it's not. It just means you're a guy from Birmingham. So, all right. Hey, all right. Thanks, King Scully. Where are we going? I feel bad for somebody. I know somebody's a patron, and they just didn't put it in the subject. So I'm going to take a stab at, let's see. Boy, we got so many emails here. Let's talk to Nick. And Nick says, hey, WWE Podcast Mailbag, some quick thoughts. Jade Cargill was incredible. Makes me think they had every other superstar fail to lift Nia over the last few months to put over the moment that Jade did it. Raquel, Rhea, Becky, Piper, if I recall correctly. Yeah, it was a great setup because it showed you that even like 5 women couldn't put her over, but Jade Cargill did it by herself. Great setup. I would agree. As a Roman fan, I was very disappointed. His match was booked to make him look super weak. He was getting thrashed for the first 10 minutes of the match. He was also visibly pinned multiple times. When they stacked everyone up for the pin by AJ, it looked like only Randy kicked out of the whole pile. Wish they would have made Roman a force to be reckoned with if they don't have him drop the belt first. Last thought is that Logan Paul versus Kevin Owens was so good for no reason. You're right. Brass knucks make a fun finish. That's all. Well, thanks, Nick. Brass knucks, I mean, I remember William Regal doing it back in the day, and I enjoyed the hell out of it. And they made a disappearing act for a while. And now Logan Paul bringing them back with his cronies always trying to help him. It's all so well done. So well done. And yeah, I mean, Roman getting destroyed for the first 10 minutes, that's kind of what happens, right? Like Roman continues to kick out of finishes, and then he'll hit a Superman punch and a spear, Solo interferes, and then 1, 2, 3. That's it. It's just kind of the formula, and obviously on a very simplistic level. But that's kind of what we've been doing with Roman for a couple years now. And it sucks. It sucks. As a fan, it's just like, it's not fun. It's not entertaining. The heat's on the company at this point. The only one that care about the number of days is seemingly management. Is there anyone out there, and I'm being serious, is there anyone listening to me that is enjoying looking at the calendar and going, oh man, oh wait, 1,300 days are coming up. Oh my God, then 14, then 1,500. And oh my God, he can actually beat Hogan's record. Is anyone actually advocating for him beating Hogan's record? And if you are, what is that going to add to how you view Roman? How do you, like, compared to how you view him right now to how you would view him if he beats Hogan's record? What benefit do you think you're going to gain from that as a viewer, as a fan? Just to say you lived through it? Just to say you were a part of living history? I don't know. I don't get it. There's nothing left to be gained. There's nothing left to do. It's all a net negative at this point. Other than WWE being able to continually shove the stats in our face that are artificially inflated because Roman takes months off at a time. And it sucks. It's just not fun anymore. That's the worst part. It's not fun. It's boring. It is boring. His matches have become boring, not because they're not talented or they don't have excellent talent. They don't have legendary talent working with Roman. It's not that. It's just that you look at it and go, yeah, well, someone's going to interfere. Or Roman will get lucky, or, whatever, solo, here comes Jimmy. Okay, 1, 2, 3, spear. Like, that's it. Yes, there have been slight variations of that finish over the years, but that's essentially what we've gotten for 3.5 years. And it's been even more daunting over the last year and a half. It's really when it started to stick in and just like, can we move the F on, please? It's the heat on the company, not on Roman anymore for me. But, all right, there's a Roman Reigns rant number 1. Let's see how many more I have. Thank you, Nick. All right. Let's talk to Malachi. Malachi says, hey, WWE Podcast, it's your sole Bianca Belair defender, Malachi. Well, no. Wait. The sole defender thing, I don't think that's true. I am a massive fan of Bianca Belair. I just don't like one aspect of her whole character, and that's like the whole twisty twirly, her hair like she's 15 years old on the school ground, skipping into school. Well, 15-year-olds probably don't even do that. I'm talking maybe more like 7 or 8-year-olds twirl their hair. I actually think, and some people, this is racist. Not racist. So here's what I'm going to say. I think Bianca Belair looks better without her braid. Okay. And I know some people are going to say, well, you don't. I know exactly what people are thinking. And that has nothing to do with any of that. And if you think that, that's on you. Okay. I don't really care if you think somehow that's racist. There are all different types of colors of people that can braid their hair. Okay. It's not specific to black women. But my point is, number 1, she's already a Hall of Famer. I mean, if Bianca Belair ended her career right now, she's a Hall of Famer. I think she could benefit by changing her look. I know her braid is iconic to her, and it's part of her character, and it's part of the graphics at the beginning of her entrance and all that stuff. And it's, it can be used as a weapon. It can be used against her in a match, all that. I've seen her recently without the braid in her hair. I think she looks way better. I think it looks more natural. I think it looks more mature. I think that at some point she should drop the braid and go with her natural look. That's personally how I like it. Okay. But that's the one thing I take issue with is not the braid itself. It's just the way also that she uses it and skips to the ring. It's not exactly what I want to see from a 36-year-old woman. I can't take her seriously when she enters the ring like that, even though she's one of the best performers that WWE has. She really is. So it's just the one aspect of that. That's it. So you're not the only defender of her. I'm a big Bianca Belair fan. Would I still turn her heel? Absolutely, at some point. But it's just that. So I'll leave it at that. And all the people who will take what I said as racist somehow, because that's the culture we live in today. Have fun with that and whatever. Like, I don't care, because that's not what it is intended for. But if you want to take it that way, go ahead. It's just simply how I feel. I think her natural look is better. Anyway, let's go to, let's see. Well, Malachi, continue with your email. I haven't written in a while, as I've been crazy busy, but as I'm always tuned in to every show in PLE, I've got a few things I want to get off my chest. First, Bianca Belair is going nowhere fast, and it scares me. Where's her place in this new WWE? I thought with the 2K cover, TV show, Slim Jim, and C4 stuff that she was a face of the company, but she gets treated like The Miz. She's probably not even going to be on the WrestleMania card this year and is going to get replaced by Jade Cargill in every single way. It shows up in the ineptitude of Triple H to book several women at one time. Secondly, I hate Cody Rhodes. People will complain about Super Bianca booking and then turn around and grovel at the feet of Cody. Okay, well, first of all, I'm not that person. You know damn well I'm not groveling at the feet of really anyone, especially Cody Rhodes. But I would disagree that they're going to bury, Bianca at this year's WrestleMania by either not putting her on the card or putting in some meaningless battle royal. No, I think they've got bigger plans for her this year. It could be Jade Cargill versus Bianca this year. It could be. Or they just keep that ace in the back of their pocket and pull it out when they want it. But she's on the face of 2K24. And she does a ton of promotional work for the company. She is one of the faces of the company. Even though on air you wouldn't really know it, she is. I think she could benefit from character development, more promos. But I don't think she's getting treated like The Miz. The Miz just constantly loses everything. Or he did as a heel for like a decade. I mean, hell, he lost to a 55-year-old rapper at WrestleMania this year in Snoop Dogg, getting embarrassed by, basically a senior citizen. I mean, so no, they're not treating the Bianca like the heel Miz. I don't think they are. You don't put someone that you have that much respect for and that much faith in on the cover of your video game that is ultra successful. So that said, I think they've got bigger plans for her at WrestleMania. Is it going to be against Io Sky? No, I think Bayley and Io Sky. Is it going to be against Jade Cargill? Maybe. That's an absolute ace in the hole anytime they want it. Or they maybe move her into Raw, or they just have her face somebody. I mean, they could have it a cross promotional match, right? What about Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair? I know they're on two separate brands, but that's a matchup that they teased the night after WrestleMania last year, or the Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania last year. Remember? They teased it. They came out both as champion and confronted one another as kind of like, hey, this is what's coming up at some point. And it's been a year. I mean, how can they not get to Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair? I think that's still on the table, to at least in the universe of possibility. I don't think it's overwhelmingly likely, but it's, I think, possible. So, I mean, hey, I don't think they're going to ignore Bianca. I think they've got bigger plans for her this year. I'm a little more, even though you're the sole defender, I'm hopeful that they actually have a bigger spot for her than you're anticipating. Because if they don't, how can you not? Bianca Belair she's put on some amazing main events, even at WrestleMania. Remember her and Sasha Banks? Her and Charlotte? Whew. They kill it. Absolutely kill it. So, all right. A couple more emails here, and then we'll wrap it up for part one. Boy, we got so many. Let's see. I've got one that's terrible takes. That's going to be a fun one. But I'll pause on that one. Jamie, don't worry. I love when, it's always fun when people disagree and like take the time to tell us how terrible our takes are. I genuinely love that. I genuinely love it because it's fun to debate other fans, and see how deep their convictions run and how awful they think our takes are. I genuinely like it. I don't mean it in a condescending way. So we'll get to that email maybe in part two, but all right. Boy, let's talk to, this is a short email. So maybe we'll do two more because this is a short one. This is from AJ. And AJ says, "What's up? Again, truth shines on what was an extremely predictable, boring, and overall disappointing show." So you're telling me you kind of enjoyed it? I said I thought Randy would win until they said Roman's match was second, and I knew it was going to be another bloodline interference. It's not a good sign that boring in relation to WWE starts to trend after the number one guy's match. Also disappointed there were no real surprise entries in either Rumble match other than the second TNA woman, which I hadn't heard of, but she did well. The only other real bright spot was Braun Breaker, who 100% replaced Brock and replaced him against Gunther at WrestleMania. P.S. At least Hogan wasn't 30, but I wanted MJF. If MJF came out at 30, you guys would have, I would have had to go on live at that moment. But didn't happen. No MJF. I didn't even predict it, but I thought there was a Small possibility. Seems like right now he's staying in AEW or he's mending his injuries. We'll find out. Maybe he shows up at Mania. I mean, what if MJF shows up at WrestleMania? I don't know. We'll prognosticate. How about that for a Cody Rhodes bigger word than needed selection? But anyway, as far as boring trending, was it really? I'm genuinely asking, did the word boring trend on X after Roman Reigns' match? If it did, LOL is my response to that. A good old lol. Because that's exactly what WWE needs to see. It's exactly what they need. It's exactly the kind of thing that they don't want fans to be, or they shouldn't want them to be. So that's awesome. But yes. So as far as the only other real bright spot was Braun Breaker and who may replace him against Gunther at WrestleMania. I mean, you could do Jey Uso. Jey Uso is a pretty good contender. It seems as if LA Knight's going to be challenging Logan Paul for the U.S. title. So LA Knight, I guess, could come to Raw, but I think it's most likely going to be Jey Uso versus Gunther at WrestleMania with Jey Uso winning. I think that's a very strong possibility. That's at this very moment, my prediction. But yeah, thank God Hogan didn't enter the Rumble. Thank God. Okay, let's go to one more. We'll say one more, and then we're gonna. Well, this guy's going to sleep is what I'm doing. Let's talk to. Well, this is also a really quick one. Oh, this is actually Omos. Is that really Omos? Okay. If that's really your name? I've never met an Omos. Okay. So cool. Let's see. So this is on Nia Jax. You said her squeaky voice makes me crack every time, especially when she says squashed. Anyway, I'm surprised she hasn't killed anyone. That's sorry, guys. I'm not. This may be the email of the week. Thank you, Omos, for your insight and your statement about being so surprised that Nia Jax hasn't killed anyone. I love it. Yeah, her voice is naturally unnerving, kind of like Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins does not have you wouldn't see Seth Rollins on some ASMR stuff. Seth Rollins would not exactly narrate in the Calm app, right? You guys know what the Calm app is. They have all those like stories with people with soft voices reading, a book or whatever. Yeah, Seth Rollins will never be on that. But Nia Jax, I would agree, has a naturally nails on a chalkboard voice. I would agree. But yeah, you're surprised she hasn't killed anyone. Oh my God, I love it. Thank you, buddy. Okay, let's talk to one more person. I keep saying that, but the emails were super short. This is too long. Let's talk to, okay, I got one here. Let's talk to, this is a little bit of criticism. I'll take it. This is the Goat Boys. So the Goat Boys, or Dan, says, I love your podcast, but I feel like you should give a bit of constructive criticism, as I'm a professional audio engineer. When you have two people on your podcast, especially this last episode, you should try and have the voices as close together volume-wise as possible. One was at 10, one was at 6, and every time the guy would talk, it would just be way overwhelming. Other than that, keep up the good work. Well, okay, so, no, thank you, Dan. I understand what you're saying there. Totally get it. I try to... There's some new software I'm working with, and... Well, I'm glad that you said something, because when I put it into my audio program, it looks like everything's normal, but sometimes I do accidentally put audio in where my voice is a lot louder than his, or his is a lot louder than mine. So when you adjust your volume, it may sound good when I'm talking, but then when he talks, it's like blowing your ears out. I'm glad you said something, so I will keep that in mind, because it's not a good listening experience. It's just not. Right? So I appreciate that. This is you're giving some constructive criticism, and I appreciate that. I really do. That's not being facetious, as they say. All right. I think that will do it for me tonight, guys. Because the rest of these emails are a little bit lengthy, and the terrible takes one I'm very interested to read. That's going to be a whole lot of fun. I just have to say that it's going to be a good one. But all right, well, yeah, we're at that hour mark. We have a couple voicemails, but we'll save the voicemails and the email for part 2, which will either be in its own episode or it'll be in the Week in Review on Sunday. So that'll do it for me, guys. Consider going VIP on our website. We still have a website, www.podcast.com, that gets you all of your ad-free content as well. And you can go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe there, or you can go to Patreon and subscribe there. It also has its own Spotify ad-free feed on Spotify, so check that out. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening, and I will talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.